So would you say, just from a general sense, is diabetes on the rise in Ganawage?
What they've done a couple of what we call chart reviews at Cattery Hospital. One was done in 1985 by Dr. Louis T. Montour, and in doing that chart review of patients being seen at the hospital, it was found that 12% of the adult population had type 2 diabetes. Another chart review was done in around the year 2000, and Heather Jacobs White and Ogisto Horn were involved with that. And at the end of that study, it was seen that there's still an average of about 12% of the adult population having type 2 diabetes in Ganawage. So it's almost I'd like to say it's a positive thing to say, because what we're seeing across the continent, both in indigenous communities and in the general population, is the rise of diabetes, the rise of prevalence in diabetes. And in this community, there's a maintenance, there's a steady level of this 12%. And I think that's an important thing to state and recognize, and to understand why is it like that. I think that we have to look back that this is a community where people are taking the information, learning about it, and we have a lot of organizations in Ganawage that promote healthy lifestyles, physical activity, healthy eating, and that those things have been promoted to the people of the community. I think the people of the community are listening.
Yeah. So taking action now will help for the next generation coming.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. As adults, parents, grandparents, teachers, community leaders, community members, we need to role model healthy behaviors for the children.
Yeah.
Okay, for the little ones, because they copy what we do. And if they see us being physically active, if they see us eating healthy, and we're providing them with opportunities to be physically active and to eat healthy, and as well that we handle the stresses in our lives in a positive way, in a healthy way, then we're creating a good environment for our children and the future generations to take control of that. But it's something that's a very slow process.
But in today's generation, everybody's got computers and Wii's and Nintendo, you know.
It's a big challenge today in 2011. You know, the foods that are available both at the supermarkets and through restaurants and fast food outlets is amazing. We've never seen such an availability and abundance of food before. You're so right that more and more people are being less active. Okay, and so we have our work cut out for us as adults in the community, as parents and grandparents, and as workers for the community. Yet we still see a lot of programs coming around, both in the schools and in the community, for children and for adults to be engaged in physical activity. The problem, though, is that in the last 10 years, as we've seen in the rest of North America, we're seeing an increase in the rates of obesity in the children in the community. And obesity is a real important factor that we have to know about and understand if we're going to prevent diabetes. And if we have diabetes, we have to also, type 2 diabetes, we have to understand that that's important. The obesity is an important factor.
Okay, you've talked about type 2 diabetes and type 1. Can you explain what since we were just talking about kids, can you explain a little bit, if you can, about juvenile diabetes?
Okay, juvenile diabetes is also known as type 1 diabetes. Yeah. And I think that represents probably about 10% of the population worldwide that has diabetes. It's very rare among Aboriginal people. It's a disease that seems to be striking primarily Caucasian children, and the signs show up often not long after birth and up to maybe 10 or 12 years old. What happens with type 1 diabetes is the pancreas shuts down. It does not produce insulin. We must have that insulin in order to convert the blood sugars into the cells. And so this type 1 diabetes is rare, yet I think those numbers are also starting to climb in a very general way, population.
Okay, but you see in Ganawagi we have the arena for physical activity. We have the walking path in the spring. So we're pretty. Would you say we're pretty well equipped for places to go for physical activity?
Most definitely. And you know what, Mike? We don't, on one level, we don't have to leave our house and yard to have physical activity. Yeah. You know, it's this body that's given to us by the Creator is made to move and do things. Our arms, our limbs, we're able to move. We burn energy. Even thinking, talking, and sleeping burns energy. And that's what we're meant to do. So in a household, taking care of our homes, taking care of the floors, washing, cutting the lawns, walking, doing all these kinds of things are physical activity. And that's what we're supposed to do. We have to remember that the food, everything that we eat, everything that we drink that goes into our mouths is like gasoline running the car, and our body is the car.
Yeah. I know in general, in Ganawagi, some people, well, not all, but like their biggest meal, would you say, in Ganawagi for some people would be like supper, and that would be like where they would have their biggest meal.
I don't know that for sure. I think it's kind of spread out that some people may only eat later in the morning. There's also a lot of people who will eat 3 square meals a day. I think what we have to look at and begin to understand is that we need to eat in balance, which means that in the morning when we get up, we do need to start putting some food into our body. We need to break our fast from the night of sleeping. Yeah. And the food that we eat needs to be balanced in the different food groups because that gets us going. Then midday, and I'm not saying 12 o'clock noon, although we're conditioned to eat at 12 o'clock noon, whether we're hungry or not, but that sometime in the afternoon, it's time then to have another meal. And then later in towards the evening time, another meal.
Yeah.
And in between those times is also times when we need to have snacks. What we have to learn to do is look for the kinds of foods we should be eating, and also the portion size. This is one of the problems I think that we're facing, not just only here in Ganawagi, but as a society in North America. We're eating too much. We're eating too much and we're not burning it off. You know, it's great if you're an iron worker and you eat a big breakfast, a big lunch, and a big supper because you're out there on the steel 8 hours a day. If you're into sports, you know, and being physically active, it's important that you're taking in that gasoline to burn the energy to be able to do those things. But if we're sitting down more often and not being active, if we're now carrying more weight than is healthy, and we've been diagnosed with diabetes, and people living with diabetes know this, is that you then have to start watching your portion sizes, because everything that you put in your mouth raises your blood sugar levels. Yeah. And the problem comes when, if the insulin isn't working right, that we're not burning off that blood sugar. It gets stored in the body as fat. We can begin to have problems with our circulation system, and that can then lead to the problems that would come from diabetes.